All right, we are back. Thanks, you guys. Hopefully, you guys are back from wherever you went for your intermission. I had to go get some more water, and yeah, we are set to jump into the next topic, which I actually got a little bit ahead of myself. We're going to talk about the lockpicking thread first, which we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, but
I
you
want to
go
jump
ahead.
in real quick. Neuro had asked a question about ferries, I think, Ferry, and I think the response was that there will be a daily ferry leading from the mainland to Crowns Rock, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with Revival being a game about immersion and having to deal with real kind of like some of the tediums of daily life, obviously you're not going to be able to warp any. Well, I mean, there will be magic, so you'll be able to have access to some fast travel, but generally most people are going to be traveling physically from place to place. So, yeah, old EQ style boat trips from Crowns Rock to the mainland. Obviously, I think technology has improved a lot. So the downsides to original EQ boats of getting disconnected and falling into the ocean and drowning or getting attacked by sharks. Hopefully those kinds of things will not even be an issue, and some of the good benefits of the EQ boat system style, actually having to wait for the boat to get there, creating some opportunities to engage with other players that may be waiting also for the boat. You're sitting there on the dock, waiting for the ferry. You can engage with other people. Hey, where are you going? You're both going to the same place. Now all of a sudden you have a contact in this. Maybe you're going to a new city for the first time. There are a lot of benefits to these type of inconveniences. I would say a lot of people may look at them as negatives, but they offer a lot of cool potential, and I don't think they're that bad of a thing. If you may not feel like you're, it's interesting because the typical MMORPG, you have your list of things you want to accomplish. Oh, I need to get to the next level. I need to get to this next area, or I need to get this piece of gear. Yada yada yada. You have some agenda. But in Revival, if maybe your goal has to be like, hey, I'm going to get to this other city today. In my 2-hour play session or 1 hour. So you go to the docks and you go to travel, and that's your goal, and you don't, it doesn't necessarily need to be anything more than that. Maybe once you get used to the kind of life in Revival, you start realizing, hey, waiting for the ferry to come, waiting for the boat to come is an opportunity for me to engage with other people, because in Revival, interacting with other people is super important and beneficial. Maybe you interacted with some nefarious thief or something on that, and you actually you were entertaining, or maybe he liked your personality, so maybe you don't become his target later. Who knows? All kinds of different potential, and I think that just having that alone, that having that is really valuable to a game. So I'd never look at you know I try not to think of these like inconveniences that most people would call them that as really a bad thing for games. It just depends on how the game is built. Like if your game is built for people to enjoy their experience while they're waiting, to travel, and there's a reason that there's something that they can accomplish while waiting, then it's not necessarily an inconvenience. It's not an obstacle in front of them accomplishing another goal necessarily. So, but anyways, yeah, just thought I would throw that out there to counter on to that. What about you, Polaris? Any thoughts on the having to wait for a ferry or boats or anything like that?
Of course, the way that I think of things, it makes me think that maybe I should roll another alt and be a fairy woman or a ferryman.
Oh, great. I think we've got another digs in the forums. There's 2 of you now. You guys
Well, I
better
just
not
hadn't
start
mentioned this
reproducing.
part before. What can I say? But it's like, yeah, that sounds like a really cool thing to do. But if you're the character and the player running that character, it could also be really boring waiting for a customer. So I don't know. But I mean, I think the whole planning your day. I mean, if you're going to go from Crowns Rock to Fall Creek or something in your play session, and then you're going to take a ferry or something to get there, then everything that you do is going to be geared toward kind of organizing your time, organizing your play session. And for the folks that are not very organized, I'm guessing they will learn or be frustrated. I mean, to be honest, I think that the trial and error part of that is going to be just what we do. How do I get from here to there? What do you mean I don't have a flying mount? What do you mean? What do you mean it costs 20 sovereigns for a mount? I mean, just all those kinds of things. So I'm probably running ahead a little bit, but those kinds of things occur to me that for the average player who does not grok this game, that standing around waiting an hour for the ferry could be a source of great irritation. And for the rest of us, it's play.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I think the hope is that there are things for us to do, whether that's read a book or try and teach our pet a new trick. There should be things that we can try to do while we're waiting somewhere, or if it's not a ferry, there might be, if it's a ship, if we're going from one continent to another, we might want to hire on so that we're taking a position on the ship and helping out that way to reduce our fare. The other interesting thing, and maybe during the initial stages of EQ, it was more interesting to have discussions with other players if we were encountering people from faraway lands that we hadn't ever visited. But one of the downsides with having static content is that at some point, we had all done all the quests. There's no reason, people talk about not talking in these games. There's no reason to talk when you've had exactly the same experience. You did this quest, I did that quest. What did you do? I did this quest. That's all you need to say. You don't have to go into the details of what that entailed. But in Revival, it's dynamic. The world should be evolving every day, so that should cause some excitement. Tell us your story, even of just that day. Maybe you bake cakes a little bit differently than I do. Maybe you swapped out different ingredients and gotten different results for different stuff. It's not going to be the exact same experience for every player. We aren't going to have the exact same relationships with all the NPCs. And so that should make discussing our daily lives interesting. Hopefully we'll be talking to each other more than we typically do nowadays in other MMORPGs.
And I think too, just to take into consideration, for even the player that's coming in with no intent to role play, no intent to specifically focus on the immersion of the game, that just wants to come in and game the game and be the best at something, obviously they're gonna, I think when people come into this game, if they've done any research at all, by the time this game releases, the concept of tagging will be quite revolutionary, I would say. Innovative as far as what other games have done, because it's one of the key differences, I think. So obviously, even if you're a gamer that's coming in just to game the game and play it, anytime you're going to consider every other NPC and every other player as potential sources of as potential tag sources and information. So even if you're just gaming the game, you're going to look at people objectively and value them based on, hey, what tags can this person give me? So even if you're not engaging in the role play necessarily, that player who's gaming the game and has to wait on the ferry, all of a sudden it can also not be viewed as an inconvenience, because you're like, hey, okay, I've got a chance to interact with these players who are going to be sitting here. They're going to be more likely to interact with me than if I just encountered them out in the open world somewhere else, because they don't have anything to do. So you start engaging them, and maybe you're looking to you ask specific questions, maybe to hope for a certain type of tag transfer, things like that. So I think it's a pretty important point to make as far as tagging being a game mechanic that can also lead people to look at some of these inconveniences more as opportunities as well. So I think it'll be interesting. Definitely either
And
way.
now that I'm thinking about it too, we've got because we have kind of three separate strata of I don't know, activities or interactions. We've got the tasks or jobs, which we can get from a job board or that NPCs or other players will have for us to do for them. We've got gossip and rumors, and those gossip and rumors will be changing, I don't know, week to week at least. So that's something right there. Not even just what did you do, but what gossip or rumor did you hear? And the other is myths and legends. So, what myths and legends do you know? Um, there's lots of information to trade there, so should be. I mean, I'm thinking as you were talking, I was thinking of going into a new area and wanting to know what's the gossip. What, not just what have you experienced personally, but what did you hear is happening.
Yeah, so we will. Great, great points, and also the chat is going. I can't even follow the chat this show. There's literally so much discussion going on. So that's awesome, you guys. Hopefully you're catching some things as well, and it's sparking discussion. That's really the whole purpose for this show. We will charge into the next section, though. I wanted to talk about the lockpicking thread, which I'll go ahead and paste in the chat for you guys if you didn't get a chance to see it. Essentially what it is, what is it, Kadan is the name of the player, I believe. Basically just really interested in lockpicking, lock making, and presented a thread that was, some massive 30 plus questions of, to the developers to, hey, what about this, for how does it, a ton of questions. You can go through and check it out if you've already read it. But yeah, it's
6 by 6. We have a rule of 6 that usually summons a dev to answer. I was expecting some smiting to go on, but the gods looked favorably upon the newbie and didn't do any smiting and actually answered all 36 questions.
Yeah, Snipe must have been waiting on a build to compile or something there. He definitely had some time to answer those. But yeah.
He said it took him an eighth of a day to do it.
So, but yeah, it was interesting to me, obviously, for one, getting that kind of dev interaction, being able to get specific questions answered was great, but I think it was awesome because it gave some insight into, yet another skill system of the game. One of the, which it's interesting too because there's so much depth in all these skill systems. How many are we going to have? We need a finite list, hopefully, or Revival's never going to get made. But yeah, I think, it brings up the question, like, what criteria are the developers using to determine what skill system is valuable? And I think there may or may not be a thread on this, or at least a developer post somewhere about the type of criteria they use when considering adding a new skill to the game. How impactful is it going to be? Is it going to be capable of having its own depth to a mini game? Something like that. I'm sure Diggs will be able to find a relevant thread that he can share with you all. But anyways, the point is a lot of depth to each of these skills. I mean, even just lockpicking, which what is that? What purpose is that going to serve? Lockmaking and lockpicking, obviously, with there being a lot of relevant loss to this game, in that things can be stolen or taken. Like, lockpicking will be very useful, and everybody will be interested in it to some extent, I believe. So, I see how it can warrant its own, unique system built for it, its own mini games, to support obviously this, and obviously, kind of going hand in hand with their standing points monetization model. You're looking to give players a way to, help make their stuff safer in all the relative sense of that word in Revival. It's another alternative people can use pursuing, locks or locking mechanisms to protect their goods, rather than maybe they have more money, maybe they're in the trade profession, they have more money and they don't have as many standing points. So that's a route that they take. So it's an interesting thing, and whether you're interested in lockpicking or not, looking through that thread and seeing the types of questions that were presented there and how they were answered, it helps add insight into what they're trying to do with each of these systems. Not necessarily just lockpicking, but you could have fit any other system into that set of questions and altered the questions a little bit to get another gamut of answers that would fill out a lot of what they want a particular system to be. So I thought it was a good example of ways that players or prospective players, forum contributors, to actually ask questions for the devs. An eighth of the day is not a small amount, so the fact that Snipe Hunter was willing to take the time and respond to that probably has a lot to do also with maybe how the questions were presented and the format that it was given in. It's really easy for a developer to answer questions if they're just simply the question. You don't have like a paragraph going for each question that has to be read as well. So a lot of good things can come from that thread. But did any of you guys see other things that stood out to you about that particular thread, or lockpicking, or anything relative to that, or other skills?
Yeah, I did. I mean, the whole description. Let me see which question it was. There's a description right at the beginning when Kadan asks, how will the minigame work? And Snipe describes what is entailed to just the minigame. And I started extrapolating on that one in every direction of every other craft and went, holy crap.
Yeah, when I was reading about that, like that first paragraph that's in there, I immediately thought back to the mining minigame that was described in pretty good detail, I think, just a couple blogs ago, I believe, 2 or 3 back, something like that. It's interesting, the minigames, how they're all planned to be different and unique, and the whole goal is to create some depth of skill. You're getting partial information in just about, I think that's one of the main underlying themes I'm seeing in all these minigames. You're getting partial information, which harkens to the tag system as well. This idea of not having all the information being a lot of where the depth comes in, because since you're not going to get all the information, progressing in that skill maybe gives you a little bit wider view of the information, or gives you a little bit more, adds a little bit of an edge there. And then also too, you do these mini games a lot, whether it's lockpicking, whether it's mining, you do them a lot, you get used to some telltale signs, of, hey, this resembles one I've done in the past. I think if I tap here, with like the mining mini game, and it increases your chances of success in that particular game. So that's one trend I'm kind of seeing, and I hope that they can find lots of unique ways to make every skill feel different as well. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I've been a big fan of the minigame thing recently. When I first heard about it, I wasn't sure what to think of it, because you've played, I played a lot of games where minigames are like kind of terrible, but there are other games I played where minigames are great, like Mario Party or something. You've got specific objectives and very different mechanics, and you get to compete in it. Which obviously, that's totally different, but the concept is really similar.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
for me, when I
go
saw
ahead.
that first paragraph, the different materials, many of the crafting aspects of these mini games will be reliant on the different materials of not only the vessels that they're created with, but also the resources that the finished products are made from. And with these locks in particular, with this specific paragraph, when I was thinking of the different alloys that you might need to create the lock, and whether or not you're getting, again, alloys from, I mean, not alloys, but resources from other planes, and whether that will make them stronger or give them possibly magical effects, has me wondering if not just about lock picking, but will we be breaking these locks? Some people might say, fuck it, I can't pick the lock. I'm just going to break the lock. Um, and will master locksmiths have a combination of alloys that make it unbreakable or highly breakable? Maybe they'll be making adamantium locks that people can't break. Um, that's where that first paragraph had me going.
Yeah, I definitely think it adds some interesting elements. I hope that the type of crafting materials is very intuitive in the fact that, these same world elements are very understood to the lore, and they apply, to all the crafts in a similar way to where people aren't having to, it just makes sense. I'm sure, I hope that they're doing that. But then also too, like what you said, having, you know, magic come into play, or materials from outside of the world of Thelis and other planes, dimensions. I think it'd be interesting to see how, I don't know, how they provide different situations for people, because, maybe you have a lock that's impervious to damage, so, that sets up a circumstance where whoever's putting that in place, or whether it's actually on an NPC building or something, it's obviously telling the players that, hey, we only want this accessed by people who have really high lock picking skills, because that's the only way you're getting it. You're not breaking it magically. So things like that, I think they create unique, barriers of entry or unique gating mechanisms, and I think the lock picking skill can be a really intriguing gating method. One, for the developers, and then two, also for players. You start trying to protect your house. Maybe you have your front door locked a certain way. Maybe you have certain rooms protected with different kinds of locks to specifically guard information exactly from the type of people that you don't want accessing it. Things like that. So it could get really interesting.
I'm going to jump in real quick. Snipe Hunter said, yeah, lock breaking is an option, though better locks are harder to break. And Neuro just jumped in saying, I'd wager there's a lot of curse locks. Sure, you can pick or break it, but you'll start puking blood, which is a horrible curse to have. What were you thinking, Polaris?
I actually didn't. I mean, the lock thing, whether it's the making of locks or the picking of locks or the breaking of locks, is all somewhat relevant to me. I certainly, on the list, as soon as I can, I'll be going looking for a lock, just like most homeowners will be. But I think really what got me going, and what continues to get me going with that thread, is extrapolating on the mechanics. It's the systems that got me kind of brainstorming, and I'm thinking at the moment about the mining, and I'm thinking, how the hell do you do a mining mini game? I mean, all I've ever done in an MMO is seen some kind of an animation and a node, and you pick at it with your trusty mining pick. So how do you make a mining game out of that? And the description in that particular blog was like, oh. So then here we have this long QA session with the lock picking, and it's like, okay, so I see systems here, I see whole structures in place for this kind of thing, and I don't know, there's a certain kind of satisfaction in that I'm getting anyway, and I know I'm weird that way, about seeing the systems at play, seeing how they might work, extrapolating on that theme about just about anything I could think of right now. And that just sounds really pretty damn fun.
Yeah, I definitely think the way that these things have been described in the blogs and obviously in the Q&As have been, pretty eye-opening especially for the average person that's never, thought about systems design at all. Obviously going to be really huge, but even people that are paying attention to the way systems work in games, it's really interesting to see the approach they're taking, why they're taking it, and getting a little bit of a glimpse into what life in the game pursuing that skill might be like a little bit, since we're still
Yes, exactly.
yeah. So it's cool to see the, to get that preview, I guess, is the best word I can think of right now to say.
And then also thinking about the different styles of locks. We've got 3 different types, like spring locks, combination locks, and wondering whether or not we'll have a variety of people specializing. Will we have people specializing in just one kind, that they're the go-to person for a combination lock, or the person to go to for a spring lock? Will it be more challenging for a jack of all trades just within the locksmithing, um, or jack of all skills just within the locksmithing skill itself? How challenging will it be for them to compete with people who specialize in one or the other? And that could be the case for any skill that we have as they branch off into possibly different specializations.
Yeah, I think skill advancement is going to be very interesting to watch in this game. Other games, whether they have skill advancement at all, or maybe you just unlock skills and that's it. It's like a talent tree in World of Warcraft or something. I know Ultima Online, you used to have a similar type of skill system. You build it up, and things like that. But I think this game by far has me the most intrigued with skill advancement, just because, for one, it's an interactive experience. Your skill advancement. It's not just, hey, I'm doing something and my skill goes up over time because I've done it a lot, or because I've macroed something in to where I can just hammer away at something overnight and max my skill in that. I think that it'll be interesting to watch, number one, how we advance in various skills, whether it's mining, lockpicking, through this type of interacting mini game, studying, interacting with mentors who have a higher skill level that are able to kind of unlock new. Because I believe one of the major things about the skill systems too, and applies to all skills, or to most skills in some aspect, is that the more you learn about a skill as you kind of like achieve milestones, it starts unlocking new recipes or new elements. You start learning how to make new things. So I think that'll be intriguing to see how these different moving parts work. And also, too, the most important thing to me, it'll be interesting to see how players attack leveling up a skill. Like how does every different player go about raising their skill? Because with a few different variable components, is there going to be, are we going to have guides online for how to level, X skill? Is it going to be possible? Is there going to be different ways to do it? And, if there are different ways to do it, what are the different ways people are going to do? Like when it'll make it interesting for people that, like, say, you're one of those people that is a crafter in your games. Neuro's in the chat. He probably fits in this category as a hardcore crafter, I would say. You're a crafter. You go into the game and you pick your profession and you just want to master this profession. All of a sudden, when you're engaging with other players that are doing that profession, it's not like in other games where they're not telling you anything you don't already know. Like, all of a sudden now, talking with that other person might provide a lot of different insight into your particular skill that you're trying to master. They may be doing something a different way, and I don't think that these are the kind of things that there will necessarily be guides out there for in the same way that we've kind of had guides in the past. I think there will obviously be guides of some form that people create. That's how people like me make a living at 10 Ton Hammer, writing guides and things. Even though I hate that part the most, but I think it'll be interesting. Maybe it's just from my personal like writing background, what I do for work, that I'll be paying attention to that. But I think also too, it's interesting to me just to see how players, try to take on different challenges. And I look at skill progression as a challenge, that'll be in the game. Obviously, the mini game will have some amount of challenge to it, and then just the idea of becoming a master in any particular profession, how that could be, this great achievement. So I see it as a challenge to undertake.
Something about the way you unfolded that had me thinking about planeswalking and locksmithing and how those might synergize in as we move into master professions. Uh, could there be a locksmith that makes locks that will lock doors in the Hall of Doors? Which is
Ooh,
there's a plane where you move to different areas in the alternate planes through doors. Can you put a lock on one of those doors? And
good question.
what would that entail? That's fascinating to think about.
I really enjoy talking about all these things when all of a sudden an idea comes up that creates way more questions than answers.
Yes.
So that's pretty awesome. Did not think about that possibility, and that makes it really interesting. And for those who are viewing who might not have any idea what the Hall of Doors is in Revival, it's essentially a method of fast travel functionally, but in the lore of Revival, it's another plane that has its own dangers and things. So, yeah, it just really, really interesting. I mean, it's an interesting game element, and made all the more interesting if all of a sudden locks and and it's not to say too that people can't go and chill in the Hall of Doors. Maybe a really strong character that is able to weather that type of madness, sit there and just block a particular door, guard it. Maybe they have some nefarious activity going on in that area, and they don't want people fast traveling in, and they've covered all the land routes in, all kinds of things. So yeah, my brain just kind of went. I'm gonna leave that one alone
Yeah.
now, or I'll go ranting for hours.
You got Snipe going too.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's dangerous. I feel like-minded with Snipe. Now you've done something dangerous there. He
Well,
will.
that's why Revivalcast is under the Theory Forge umbrella, right?
Yes, that's true. We are Theory Forge. What we do is myself and Diggs being Theory Forge co-hosts. We think about all the ways that we can do things and break games potentially, or create new ideas for games. So definitely love that aspect of it. But yeah, I'm not going to touch that one anymore because I could literally go on forever. Polaris? Do you have any other thoughts on skill advancement in general? Not even necessarily just lockpicking, but skill advancement, or what you think for skill progression in Revival?
I think my wish is that the RNG, because it will have RNG, but my wish is that the RNG factor is not nearly so bad and brutal as it can be in a game like Arcage. I mean, that's part of the appeal, I think, for some folks.
What happens there? I didn't play Arcade at all.
It is just really RNG. So even if you add every possible thing that will promote, or I don't know, better word, a good result, or prevent a bad result, you can still get crap. It can still, under some circumstances, break. You can still waste hours, money, materials, yada 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 yada, ad infinitum. I mean, so it's just like I'd like to hope that it's not quite that brutal. The RNG is real in Arcade.
Yeah, one of the things that I loved about the crafting system in Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is that it was very rule of world in terms of the resources that you used. So as you're trying to experiment, you could extrapolate that, this flour is used if you want to make something cold. This flour is used if you want to make something hot. And as you're experimenting for new potions, you take that into mind. I know that if I want something ice related, I'm going to use this particular flour. And I think Valix was mentioning that to some degree as well. The hope would be that if you have a certain material that you're going to use to make a lock, especially difficult to break, hopefully you would use that same resource if you're doing that for any other tool or weapon. Um, that you know that those attributes are going to be applicable across the board rather than it just being what you seem to be saying, possibly only left up to RNG.
Right.
Or
That's where it lives. Is after you've done everything that you could possibly do, and that the system requires that you do, it's still left to RNG,
I think,
and that just kind of sucks.
just to jump in, I think, with the ear of the developers here, I'm gonna see, if this is any of their mindset into it. But I think a big reason that a lot of MMORPGs have RNG is because they can't make everything so finite for players that their whole experience becomes predictable. They've got to deal with some unpredictable stuff to kind of keep that mystery to some aspects of the game. When I look at Revival, there's already so many things that are just, you're not going to be able to predict how the world's going to evolve. The chain reaction. We've listed several things just on this show alone that are going to be what I would call randomizer elements, to the world. So having the crafting experience of the game be fairly finite, obviously like the mini games are going to procedurally generate to some extent, like the mining mini game with the squares they were talking about, like, the areas tapping and trying to get the most ore. Obviously it's going to be unpredictable to some extent, but yeah, I would like to hope that pure RNG, like, hey, you're creating an item and it rolls a dice, and based on the dice value, hey, if you get a 11 or 12 on your 12-sided die, you get a legendary item. I hope that is not even a part of it, because I feel like it doesn't need to be. There are so many elements that are just already randomizers for this game. Having to randomize the equipment is totally beyond unnecessary, in my opinion. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much randomization they add to the crafting process, because I know, especially for people that really love crafting, we had, for anybody that followed Theory Forge or any of the stuff we did for EverQuest Next, we had a fan and friend of the show, Coda Voss, that is just like, he is a crafting fanatic, and I remember his biggest complaint, like, there was nothing he hated more than RNG. So when it comes to crafting mini games, I'm hoping, the RNG stays far, far away. So yeah, that was just some thoughts I had on that, but
I agree, actually. Yeah. I would, as I posted in the chat, I would much rather have to go on this epic, long-ass adventure to get the correct materials than to have RNG at the last second for the thing I just went all over hell and earth to get in order to make, and it broke.
Yeah, definitely.
At least be able to resmelt it and do
something.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
So
we're supposed to have player skill involved in the mini games too, so that playing through several times is supposed to make us be able to anticipate some of those potential losses or catastrophes.
So
and mitigate them.
I can honestly not believe that it's almost been 2 hours already since we first started the show. We are running on an hour and 40, almost an hour and 50 minutes here. So I did have one other topic I wanted to get into, but I feel like it's way too, there's way too much to talk about for it. So I'm actually going to save that as our show for the next show. So, but yeah, the topic idea is kind of dangerous freedom, and we're gonna explore pretty in depth, some of the way we're gonna talk about, some of the negatives to having a lot of agency, and examine the pros and cons, and then of course, discuss how the developers are handling the presentation of that, the marketing, so to say, even though they're not really quite marketing the game yet, but how you're presenting those negatives or how you're addressing those, and the perceptions are pretty big things, especially for a game with this much agency. So all those things, kind of huge teaser for the next show that we do. So that will be, which I don't know, we'll have to talk and find out for the available hosts. I know I will be traveling for the holidays next week, so I may be available to be on. I just won't be available for our tech, but we do have a tech person, several tech people. So we'll find out. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, big teaser for the next show, and we'll keep you guys posted on that. But as sort of a lesser topic to close us out here in our last few minutes, I did want to talk about moving into a new year. Obviously, it's near the end of December. We're rolling into Christmas, New Year's, and on into 2016. So for Revival, we're knocking on the door of Phase 2, right? It's about to. We've basically just got the estates, and they're buttoning up a couple things there, and then Phase 1 or Stage 1 will be done, and Stage 2 will be the next big target here. So 2016. We're going to be looking at that, and potentially, maybe they'll be moving off or also into Stage 3 development for next year. So, with that being said, I wanted to pass it around to everybody and ask, and you guys too in the chat can chime in as well. What are you looking forward to for 2016? Is there anything specific, any system maybe that you're wanting to see? Come to fruition next year, or what are you hoping to see from Revival next year? So yeah, I'll go ahead. We'll pass it to Diggs first. What? Yeah, I'll go last since I've been ranting plenty this show. What are you thinking for next year, 2016 in Revival? What is on your mind?
Well, the first thing that should be coming in is these like crafting stations. Like we'll kind of get our crafting areas, or I don't know the official name for them, but we'll be getting our telescopes and our bookshelves and our ritual circles. So I'm hoping to start being able to use those. I would like to be able to cook and bake and make beer so that we can start having parties. Once those first stations are finished, they should start trying to get us to move into visiting each other's homes. So I'm looking forward to having parties sometime before the summer. In-game at people's houses and able to do stuff while whether that's play D&D or do some astrology card reading, stuff like that. That's what I'm hoping to do. Actually get in the game, visit people's houses, and be able to have some fun activities going on while we're there. Sex minigame. I hadn't even thought about that, but that pops into mind as something that might be nice to have active once we start being able to visit each other's homes.
All right. Well, great ending note. Polaris, what's on your mind for 2016 Revival?
I think I'm pretty much on the same page as Diggs. I'm looking forward to all things interactive. Stage 1 completion includes the renovation kits and the estates. I am curious about the estates. I am hopeful that there might be some way for us to see what they are, even if we don't buy them. I don't know that will actually happen, but that's a request that's been around. I made that request back in May or something like that. So maybe we'll have a chance to get some kind of a tour so that we can see what they're like before they're sold, or some sample of one. And then the big thing is interactivity. I know that they have to actually, take all those scrolls and all those books and all those items in our houses and cottages and tenements and whatever, and make them interactive. And so that's a work in progress, and I imagine that's kind of a pain in the butt. But I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to be able to read the books that are in my house. I have tons of them in my house. And then once the renovation kits are in, being able to actually interact with those items. Just because the kits are in, I don't know that they're going to be interactive yet. I'd like to hope so, but I don't know for sure. And then, as Dig said, being able to visit each other's houses, being able to have parties, interactivity in that direction with any kind of multiplayer would be just, amazing. And tons and tons of fun. So I'm excited to explore the city in Stage 2. Even if that rolls out in little bits and pieces, I think that will be a blast. I love to explore, so I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely. I will double and triple check everything that you guys have said. All things I'm very much looking forward to. That last point you made, Polaris, about exploring the world, or the city of Crowns Rock, even if it's in bits and pieces. I mean, knowing that Crowns Rock, knowing that the world of Revival, every little thing kind of has a bit more weight to it. Every house has somebody that lives there. Every corner of every street, there's going to be something going on there. So being able to just explore that and walk around and even start imagining some things that can take place there will be a ton of fun, I think. And then building that familiarity, so once we get to log in, actually, the game is going, and having that familiarity with Crowns Rock, I think will be super helpful to engaging in the other systems, that are going to be coming online as well. All the interactive bits definitely up there on my list as well, especially being able to visit other people's houses. And I think that ties right into the comments you made about the estates, and your request to the developers. If I was an estate owner, which I'm not because writers don't make that much money, but yeah, if I was an estate owner, I would want to be able to have everybody have the ability to log into my house and not edit anything, just so that they could see what I own, and cruise around my huge estate. I was going to say mansion, but yeah, mansions are even less than estates. They're an actual thing in Revival. Very tiny compared to an estate. So yeah, being able to explore the estates would be very cool. I don't see why anybody would not want that to be something they can do, even the people who own the estates. So, but maybe there are some owners that would not want people logging in. So we'll see. But yeah, it should be with only there being 3 of them, I believe. I know there's 5 or something like that, 5 or 6 or 7, but there's only 3 that can be purchased, I believe.
5.
5. Okay, so 5 purchasable, and there'll be 2 unpurchasable, I think, if my memory serves me correct, in the town estate side. Okay, maybe my numbers are off, but anyways, the developer should contact those 5 people and be like, hey, is this okay if we can have people log into your house if they can't edit things, and then allow anybody to log in. But I'm ranting, of course, as always. So but for me, all the things you guys said, particularly for myself individually, I would love to see the ability to log into other players' houses, not just the estates, like I was saying, to check everything out, but to log in with other people and start engaging in some role play. Maybe you're not doing anything meaningful for your future Revival character's life, but hey, just logging in and trying to role play, get a feel for what characters you might want to create when the time comes around for that. Those kinds of things I think will be really fun. Being part of a role playing guild with the Astrarium also is, I'm really big on role playing. So even if we can just log in and not do anything interactive besides just pseudo role playing and get ideas for how we want our characters to be in the guild, and because one thing that's I think is interesting about Revival is I feel like player organizations will be way more impactful and meaningful and just have so many more possibilities. So giving players the ability to kind of pre-game a little bit and get some ideas for how they're going to build their player organizations, what type of characters, because your character's actions will affect their role in the world. So people are going to have to design their characters around how they want them to fit in their guild. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of cool stuff to be explored there. So all that kind of stuff for me. Excited to see what Revival brings. Getting to go check out the studio just a few weeks ago. Getting to see some more art that like Figment was working on and some new stuff. I'm excited to see all that stuff come out. Some of the renovation kits and all the statues are amazing. So the art, just seeing the world come to life is going to be really cool. So, but yeah, that is
and
it.
I know that. I know that Snipe has been working on the Origin Matrix. They brought that up to current timing rather than sticking it. I think it was originally supposed to be stage 3 or something, and they've brought that up closer. And I know that's something he's working on in tandem with all the other stuff that's happening, because they'd like to get that out to us sooner. And I am, like many, many people, chomping at the bit to just test that out. I think that would be a blast.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can see Diggs nodding over there as well. I think all of us are pretty excited for what the Origin Matrix has in store. There's nothing that is anything close to it. I would say Guild Wars 2 has a very, very poor man's version of what Revival wants to do with their Origin Matrix, if that even comes close. I'm sure Neurotoxin in the chat can probably list 3 games that have some crazy character creates, but yeah, I'm really excited. I was playing around in Black Desert Online's character create. You can do some crazy stuff with that, but nothing to do with your character's history or their background or anything. Just purely the aesthetics. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. So I'm curious to see what can be explored in the Origin Matrix, which is all background and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we want to thank you guys for tuning in, of course. Well, first, Diggs, Polaris, any last thoughts, last words on anything today before we close out?
Just thank you for having me. Thanks for the invite. This was a lot of fun. I got over my nervousness. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great to have you. I think the 2 hour long one definitely gave you a chance to get into a groove. So we were very glad to have you on finally. I know we've been trying to get you on for a little bit last week, but we finally made it happen. Very, very glad to have you, and it was great. I love the contribution, and glad that the rest of the community got to see a bit more of you and get to know some more of your opinions and insights on the game.
I'm gonna segue real quick. We got turned on to Lego Worlds last night, and I spent about 9 hours since then playing, and realized this morning I didn't even it's a Lego game. I did not even get around to building anything yet. All I've done is explore, and I think I've collected about 15, 16, 17 characters. So I'm already halting. That's all I'm doing in Lego Worlds is collecting characters, because I guess that's something that I do. Just thought that was funny.
Nice. Yeah, I got to jump into it a little bit. The kids were laughing their heads off at all the silly animations, so that'll be a fun one that I can do when I'm watching the kids play a little Lego.
Anybody who is thinking that they would like Landmark, anybody who's been enjoying Minecraft should jump into Lego Worlds if
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's interesting. I agree with that. I think it's, especially too if you've got kids and you want something kid-friendly to play, you won't be able to do that with Revival. So it's a very cool little game. So if you were interested in that, I know we have quite a bit of people that's Theory Forge audience. We started out as a Landmark EverQuest Next show, so maybe some people that might be interested in that. So definitely check it out. But for Revivalcast, that is it for us. We hope you've enjoyed this double dose of the show. Missing a few weeks the last couple months. We've kind of been bouncing around a little bit. Mostly me kind of coming back in and trying to get tech going and everything. So yeah, we will have a plan for you guys though, and I'm gonna make sure you guys know ahead of time in the forums. I didn't post that out in the forums. I usually do, but I've been trying to. So we'll have a better plan for you guys. And as far as next week's show, we're going to talk and see if we can have tech. If we can have tech, then we'll find out if we can get enough hosts together. If not, then we will catch you guys in the new year, because I believe there's only one other week before the new year, so 2016. Enjoy your holidays, and thanks again, Polaris, for coming on. Thanks you guys, everybody in the chat, for participating in the discussion. The developers for answering questions, always great about that. So if you are watching this on YouTube by chance, come live if you can. It's great. We do it every Sunday at 2 p.m.-ish. Oh wait, that's for me, sorry. 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. So tune in for that, and you can join the discussion. And if you're a Revival community member, hopefully we can actually get you on too, just like Polaris here, and get to hear your opinions and thoughts on the game. So definitely, I mean, my email should not be hard to find. I believe it's on 10 Cent Hammer. I believe I posted it in the Revival forum somewhere. So yeah, shoot out contact to me, and we can get you on as well. So thanks, you guys. Thanks again, Diggs, for coming on. Great questions, everybody, and we will catch you in next week, a couple weeks, sometime soon. Not too long. So.